Welcome back, everybody. I want to ask a question, and it's related to curriculum. So, where do you find your largest gaps? Is it related to comprehension of concepts by your students, or is it related to content, or maybe evaluation? Is there misalignment between where you expected your students to perform on the exam and where they actually performed? Or maybe you spend time developing this great, innovative, exciting, active learning strategy. Maybe it's a learning circle activity. Perhaps you're engaging in the backwards design model where you're beginning with the end in mind. We know that's a really important strategy when we look at competency based curriculum. So maybe you're in any of these categories, or maybe you're falling in all of these categories, and you're trying to figure out where is the misalignment? Why are my students not performing better? Why are they not engaging in all of these active learning strategies that I am developing for them? Well, we're going to talk about it because we know that many colleagues struggle with curriculum alignment, and being surprised with a summative evaluation report that's not quite at that benchmark can be overwhelming and frustrating. And we are here today to talk more about curriculum alignment and what are those three simple strategies that you want to follow to help ensure that there are no surprises when you get to the summative. And most importantly, that students are actively engaging with you as you partner with them in moving through the four phases of Kolb's experiential learning theory that is described in his work. So welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Slow's Educate, where our mission is to support nursing excellence. We know that many colleagues are on the journey to achieve certification, whether you're a nurse educator, nurse leader, or you're a SIM specialist. We are here to support you as you move forward on your journey. The only way you won't achieve success is if you quit. We have validated um, every single part of our curriculum to help you stay focused as you move forward on your journey. All right, so first and foremost, we want you to pull out your study worksheet. Okay, so that study worksheet is going to help you stay focused as you move forward on your journey. On that study worksheet, we want you to write down two things. Number one is the date. So today's date, whatever date you're watching this snapshot. Step number two is to write down what is your objective. Now that you know what we're talking about, which is curriculum alignment, what is your objective? What takeaway do you want to walk away with at the end of our time together? When you're moving forward on your journey towards certification, we want you to make sure you're using the right resources so you're maximizing the efficiency and productivity of your time by focusing on the right resources. All right. So if you are on the journey to CNE, you already know that Billings and Halstead is your Bible. Okay, this is the sixth edition, but the seventh edition is available. The reason why we're using the sixth edition is because this is the one that is currently mapped to the CNE blueprint. Okay, and we know that there are lots of resources out there, and we want you using the right one. So let's go ahead and share our screen. We're going to be talking about a thought-provoking question. We're also going to be talking about what your next steps could be to ensure that you have clarity around your curriculum. So students aren't surprised based on the data, right? Based on their results from the evaluation strategies that we're using, and we're not surprised, right? So we're all aligned, we're all on the same page. We want to shift from chaos to clarity. We have to understand just three essential steps that we're going to talk about today to effectively develop a rich, impactful, and effective learning experience for our students. We know that the landscape of education is more complex and complicated than it ever has been before. Now, we know some foundational elements have not changed in nursing, right? And what we see are these social determinants of learning that can negatively impact the success of our students. So we got to have clarity and we have to have engagement, right? We want all of our students raising their hands, engaging actively in the learning journey with us. Sometimes we get frustrated, sometimes we get off track. This is why we have written a book called Rooted in Wisdom. We encourage you to take advantage right now of the pre-order process. So if you're watching this snapshot live, we are in the pre-order phase. And the exciting part about the pre-order phase is that you don't have to pay a price for the book. You only have to pay for shipping. So go to drsouseducate.com/rooted to go ahead and put your name on the list. So as soon as our book is released, you'll be able to take advantage of that. All right, so for some reason, my image did not display. So let's reset. I always say technology is great as long as it works. And I'm sure your campus, just like us and campuses across the country, were affected by the website outage that occurred a couple of days or weeks ago. So what we know, number one, is for curriculum clarity is aligning outcomes. Remember how we started in our conversation today? We wanted you to write down what is the outcome that you expect, right? What is that takeaway you want to have at the end of our time together? And we know that time is our most valuable asset. That's right. Time is our most valuable asset. So we want to be mindful and intentional as we're moving forward in developing curriculum for our students to align with our programmatic outcomes. All right, so number one is aligning the outcomes. When we're developing our lesson plans, when we're developing our evaluation tools, we want to ensure that what we are intended to teach actually happens. What we intend for our students to learn, it's actually validated through those formative assessments, which could simply include a discussion. Okay, it can include a discussion about a specific concept that is aligned with our learning objectives for that day. The second part is that summative evaluation. So, have we developed a blueprint, an exam blueprint to show the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, to show the number of questions that are aligned with that level? And what about the difficulty? What do we expect those questions to be difficult? Do we have a wide variety across the different levels of the cognitive learning domain that are described on pages 188 through 190 in Billings and Halstead's sixth edition? We should be evaluating and aligning our outcomes with evaluation and assessment strategies across all three learning domains. All right, so that's step one. Make sure we're aligning outcomes. Let's go ahead and take a look at this thought-provoking question, and we'll answer this question before we end our time together today. So stay with us. So you'll be able to debrief with us to choose, to make sure you've chosen the correct answer. And if you haven't, that's okay, right? This is a formative process. It's iterative. You're showing up every week for our snapshots at 9 a.m. You're processing this information in a way that creates meaning for you. That's how we develop this deep comprehension that leads to application and analysis. So here we go. During a program review, the faculty team discovers that despite strong course evaluations, NCLEX-style questions assessing clinical judgment show consistently low student performance. Upon review, the team notices that several course objectives emphasize recall level knowledge rather than application or analysis. You are asked to identify where the curriculum alignment problem most likely exists. Here's the question. Where is the most significant gap contributing to this misalignment? We have A, course content is well developed, but the learning outcomes focus on remembering and understanding rather than applying or analyzing. B, faculty provide detailed lectures on clinical topics, but students are not completing enough assigned readings to reinforce the material. Or C, evaluation methods include simulation and case studies, but students prefer traditional exams over active learning activities. When you get to your questions on the exam, you're going to ask yourself, first of all, what is this question really asking me? Oftentimes in the STEM, there's going to be a scenario or it could be a statement because at least 70 to 80% of those questions are going to be at that application and analysis level for the C&E exam. So you want to be clear about what the question is really asking you. The second consideration is, what is it that I know for sure about concepts that are included in this question? All right, so stay with us. We'll go back and answer this question at the end of our time together today. Step number two, strategy number two is assessment. What assessments am I using? The evidence still shows that people of color do struggle with standardized exams. However, we as a community have to figure out how can we help them get through that, right? Because NCLEX is a standardized exam, right? So we have to make sure students have the skills, the resources to equip them with strategies to help them move through and past that challenge. Okay, so when we look at our assessments, how are we evaluating the three learning domains? How are we developing those blueprints? How are we scaffolding learning over time so students are starting at that foundational level, but they're not staying there at that lowest level of the cognitive learning domain, which is remembering we have to get them to that highest level, which is creating. Okay, and then next, we want to look at the psychomotor learning domain. Okay, so that lowest level, we want to look at that strategy, the teaching strategies we're using to engage at that lowest level. And we know ultimately they have to get to the highest level of psychomotor, which is naturalization, right? Students are naturally able to go through the steps that are needed to demonstrate a high skill level associated with clinical practice decisions, right? So they can't stay at replication for psychomotor. They have to be able to get to that highest level where they're not looking at their notes, right? They know the steps to insert a Foley. And then we have to look at also the affective learning domain. How are we assessing and really building on the skills that students need to be competent as it relates to the affective learning domain as well? Okay, so all three learning domains, we're looking at what assessments are we developing and how are we integrating and aligning our teaching strategies to ensure that students are going to close the loop as it relates to the assessment tools that we're using the formative approach as well as the summative approach. And then the third strategy to help us clarify any curriculum gaps and help streamline our resources to effectively support the learning journey is that real world practice. How are we, as a group of faculty from a programmatic standpoint, how are we integrating real world practices in the didactic setting, right? We can't wait until students get to the skill lab, to the sim lab, and we certainly can't wait until they get to that clinical setting. Patricia Benner's work talks about bridging that theory practice gap, ensuring that there's alignment with students comprehending in that classroom the what as it relates to sterile technique. What are those steps that should be followed? And the why. Why do we have to take the sequential steps of inserting a Foley to avoid infection? Okay, so to avoid adverse events. And then are we bringing the Foley catheter into the classroom, right? Are we creating the synopsis process steps that we know are identified in the literature to help students actually apply and analyze the skills, the steps, the evidence-based practices that we're discussing in the class? Let's go ahead and bring those real life experiences into the classroom. Okay, let's simulate those experiences as best as we can. All right, and as we wrap up, what are some other tips and tricks and strategies? As a bonus, remember collaboration. Let's use our platforms. We have so many different platforms, LMS systems. Let's make sure that we are coming together as a faculty, as a group to evaluate how are we creating learning strategies that help our students sustain and most importantly, be able to transfer knowledge in future situations, right? That's our goal when we look at Tanner's clinical judgment model, when we look at NCSBN clinical judgment model. The second bonus tip is to embrace. We want to create a culture, a community where students are excited, right, about project-based learning. We think about unfolding case studies. We think about small group projects. Those are ways to develop community and to help students engage in groupthink. We know that our learners, especially nursing students, learn a lot from each other. So let's create a culture where students are engaged in group learning to help them understand concepts that may be difficult and also to help them grow in their independent thinking as well as in their group thought. All right, so if you chose A, give yourself a round of applause. We want to make sure when we ask the question, where's the most significant gap? Content, right? That's that foundational piece. Students are able to, we know they have to start at that lowest level of remembering, but they can't stay there. We can really accelerate the scaffolding of their learning by developing that solid foundation. So we have to start with making sure that students are understand basic concepts that we are teaching in our course and making sure that they are aligning with our learning outcomes. Okay, so that's helping students build on their prior knowledge. We're creating iterative processes where students are having multiple opportunities to bridge and close the loop related to their knowledge gaps. And then we are introducing new concepts that allow them to transfer the knowledge that they've already developed because we've built that solid foundation. Okay, so congratulations if you chose the correct answer. If you did not, that's okay. We do not want you to feel frustrated. We want you to most importantly understand the why. Okay, because here's the good news: these questions are not on the CNE exam. Well, maybe some of you do wish they were on the CNE exam, but that's the good news. We don't want you to stress out about whether or not you chose the correct answer. It's most important that you understand the why. So, how did you do? How are you feeling about content that we discussed today? One, you feel lost, you have no idea what we're talking about. Or five, you feel ready to teach. When we are able to engage in comprehension of concepts, I'm going to come off sharing for a second. When we're able to engage in these snapshots, right? This is a way that we engage in micro learning. So when we're able to connect the dots and close the loop weekly, then we're more likely to have a deep comprehension of knowledge, right? Because we can go out now and apply these concepts that we've talked about today. That's why we started with step one, pulling out that study worksheet, writing down, because research says we can be 50 to 70% more likely to retain that information when we physically write it down. Okay, so writing down number one, today's date, because I don't know about you, but I attend a lot of workshops. And that gives you some informed information about the timeline that you have been on to help close your knowledge gaps. And then step number two, you were to write down what your learning outcome, what your objective was for showing up today. We hope that this snapshot has been helpful. Remember to go ahead and subscribe. I'll go back to that slide now. Go ahead and subscribe to our weekly session. So right here, you want to click the bell and subscribe because you want to be notified every single time a new snapshot is released, which usually happens every week. And then you want to go to drselleseducate.com/rooted to take advantage of your free copy of our daily inspiration for nurse educators. And listen, colleagues, this is going to be a game changer. We know that nurse educator colleagues are struggling across the country. We don't want you to do it alone. Okay, so yes, this journey is about becoming a better nurse educator and achieve nurse educator excellence. And we want to partner with you. Okay, we want to support you as you move forward on your journey. So, last but not least, how do you get in touch with us if you have other questions? Because we don't want you doing it alone. We want you to reach out to us going to our website, drselleseducate.com. That's where you're going to find all the resources. And we also want you to email us if you have questions. The only way you won't achieve success on the exam is if you quit. We have evidence-based resources to help you on the journey, so don't do this journey alone. We're here to support you until you are successful, no matter how long that takes. We look forward to seeing you in our next snapshot. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.